24 hours ago, something crossed the sky over Iceland and Spain that hadn't happened in generations. Reykjavík hadn't stood under a fully blacked-out sun since the middle of the last century. Continental Europe hadn't seen a total eclipse since 1999. In some towns, the whole thing lasted barely more than a minute, and yet people flew across oceans for it. That was yesterday. Today the photos are in, the live streams are archived, and there's finally enough on record to answer the only question that matters. Did it happen the way it was supposed to, and did the story spreading alongside it hold up? Did it hold up? Mostly, barely. But stick with me. This wasn't a quiet run-up. A second story was spreading too. A very specific one, with a timestamp, a supposedly leaked document, an $89 billion budget, and a claim that gravity itself would switch off for 7 seconds. We'll take that apart at the end, piece by piece. First, the sky. 4 separate sky events landed inside the same 24 hours yesterday, which almost never happens at this scale. Before dawn, 6 planets sat above the horizon at once. In the late afternoon, the moon crossed directly in front of the sun. At 5:37 p.m. Universal Time, the moon hit its exact new phase, which sounds like a fourth unrelated fact, but isn't. Once night fell, the Perseid meteor shower hit its yearly peak with zero moonlight to interfere. Nearly 1 billion people watched some version of yesterday's eclipse. Fewer than 1 in 500 saw the actual thing. The corona, the sudden dark, the version people describe afterward like it belongs in a different category of memory altogether. And a lot of yesterday's online confusion traces right back to that gap. People watched a 90% covered sun, figured that was basically the main event, and nope, not even close. Jupiter, Mercury, Mars, Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune were all above the horizon in the same stretch of pre-dawn sky. Mars and Saturn are easy naked eye catches. Jupiter was blazing but low enough that a roofline could erase it. Mercury barely cleared the horizon before the sun did. Uranus needed binoculars, Neptune a telescope. Missed that window by 20 minutes and the sky washed out from the horizon up. Okay, the correction. And honestly, this was the single most oversold detail in the run-up to yesterday. The planets did not line up. Nothing gravitational happened as a result of where they sat. Every planet in the solar system orbits within roughly the same flat plane, so from down here they always trace the same curve across the sky. Astronomers call it the ecliptic, and it's up there every clear night of the year. 6 of them happened to sit on the visible side of it at once yesterday. A scheduling accident, nothing more, and this is the eclipse. The piece of yesterday that ends up in history books instead of just group chats. The moon's inner shadow touched down over Arctic Russia, swept across eastern Greenland, brushed Iceland's west coast, crossed open ocean, and came ashore over northern Spain, the Balearic Islands, and a corner of Portugal. About 290 kilometers wide, moving over 3,000 kilometers an hour in places, it existed somewhere on Earth for a total of roughly 96 minutes. No single town got anywhere close to that. The shadow was racing the entire time, so any one spot only got the sliver it took the leading and trailing edges to pass overhead. The longest totality of the whole eclipse happened over empty water, witnessed by nobody at all. The physics behind why this is even possible is stranger than the spectacle. The sun is roughly 400 times wider than the moon, and also roughly 400 times farther away. Those numbers cancel almost perfectly, which is the entire reason the moon can appear to fit so precisely over the sun's disk. Nothing in physics requires that. It's a coincidence of exactly where Earth sits in the solar system's timeline, and it won't last. The moon is slowly drifting outward, and in roughly 1.2 billion years, it'll be too far to fully cover the sun again. In Spain, the sun sat only a few degrees above the horizon during totality, so the corona hung low over the landscape instead of overhead. Photographers were already calling it one of the more visually striking eclipses in recent memory. That low angle also made it fragile. One bank of cloud in the wrong spot could have erased the whole thing. Barcelona and Madrid both sat at 99% coverage. 99% sounds, on paper, like basically the whole thing. Every single one of those cities missed the corona entirely. The number holds all the way down the list, no matter how close the percentage got to 100. The sun's surface is just that bright. Even the tiny sliver still exposed at 99% coverage completely drowns out the faint corona around it. a stadium spotlight next to a lit match, and the match is still burning. You just can't see it against all that glare. No percentage of coverage buys you a fraction of totality. The corona shows up the instant the surface disappears entirely, and not 1 second before. Outside the path, yesterday evening just looked off. Daylight going slightly flat, dimmer in a way that was hard to place. Inside the path, it was a different world. Temperature dropping fast enough to feel, the horizon turning bronze in every direction at once, planets and stars popping out mid-afternoon, birds going silent, a wall of shadow visibly racing across the ground at well over 1,000 miles an hour. Ask anyone who stood through both. They'll tell you about two separate memories, filed away in two separate places, and they'll get a little annoyed if you try to compare them on the same scale. Totality wasn't visible anywhere in the continental US. Every partial view on that list required certified eclipse glasses the whole time. Any sliver of the sun stayed exposed. Sunglasses do nothing against that kind of brightness. The new moon arrived at 5:37 p.m. Universal Time. Greatest eclipse landed at 5:46, 9 minutes apart. And no, that's not two coincidences stacking on top of each other. A solar eclipse can only happen at new moon, period, because a solar eclipse is the new moon crossing in front of the sun. Same event. Two vocabularies. There's a new moon, roughly every 29.5 days, though. So why isn't there an eclipse every month? Because the moon's orbit is tipped about 5 degrees relative to Earth's path around the sun. Most months, the new moon passes just above or below the sun from our angle, and its shadow sails into empty space. An eclipse needs the new moon to land near one of the 2 points where those tilted planes cross, which is why eclipses arrive in seasons, in pairs. This one's partner, a partial lunar eclipse on August 28th. Total eclipses aren't just spectacle. In 1919, astrophysicist Arthur Eddington led an expedition to the island of Principe off the coast of West Africa, specifically to photograph one. Getting there wasn't simple. World War I had ended barely 6 months earlier, ships were still scarce, and Eddington, a Quaker and a conscientious objector, had only avoided prison during the war on the condition that this expedition actually go ahead once it was over. He sailed for weeks with a second team splitting off toward Brazil, in case cloud cover ruined one location entirely. On the morning of the eclipse, a storm rolled through Principe. The clouds only broke in the final minutes before totality, and Eddington's team scrambled to expose 16 photographic plates in the couple of minutes they had. And what he was actually testing, if you're wondering, is this. Einstein's general relativity, published 3 years earlier, made a strange prediction. The sun's mass should bend starlight passing near it, just slightly. The only way to check was to photograph stars sitting right at the sun's edge. Impossible under normal daylight because the glare erases them completely. During totality, for a few minutes, that glare disappears and the stars come out. Eddington's team photographed the star field around the darkened sun, then compared it months later against the same patch of night sky, with the sun nowhere near it. The stars had shifted, by almost exactly the amount Einstein's math predicted. Newspapers ran headlines calling it a revolution in science, and a physicist most of the public had never heard of became a household name within weeks, all because of a few frantic minutes on a cloudy island. That's the same basic accident still running yesterday, just with better cameras. The corona's innermost layer, the part scientists most want to study, is normally swamped by the sun's own glare. Spacecraft instruments block that glare with a metal disc, but the disc ends up hiding the very region they're chasing. Yesterday, the moon did that job with a precision nothing engineered has ever matched. A high-altitude research jet flew the shadow's path at nearly 500 miles an hour, stretching totality out to almost 3 uninterrupted minutes of infrared and visible light imagery. Data aimed at a mystery that's still unsolved. Why the corona runs nearly 1,000,000 degrees hotter than the surface sitting right beneath it, something physicists have been chasing for the better part of a century. But while the jet chased the corona through the sky, something else was quietly building toward its own peak after dark, and it wouldn't happen under a sky this empty of moonlight again until 2045. Somewhere in your feed last night, that gravity rumor was probably still making the rounds, the leaked document, the $89 billion, the 7 seconds. We'll pull it apart properly in a few minutes, and the reason it fooled as many people as it did is worth waiting for. First though, look up, because this part of the night needed nothing debunked at all. The Perseid meteor shower is debris from a comet called Swift-Tuttle, discovered independently by two astronomers within days of each other in 1862. The comet swings past Earth only once every 133 years, last in 1992, not due back until the next century. Every August, though, Earth plows through the dust it's shed across thousands of past orbits, regardless of where the comet itself currently sits. Realistic peak rates under dark skies run toward 100 meteors an hour. What made last night different is that the peak landed exactly on the new moon. Zero moonlight to wash out faint meteors or dull the bright fireballs the Perseids are known for. The next time this shower peaks under a sky, this dark isn't until 2045. There's also a wilder possibility on the horizon. Some researchers think Earth could cross an unusually dense filament of debris in 2028, raising the chance of a true meteor storm rather than an ordinary shower. One cruel wrinkle: north of about 60 degrees latitude, covering both Iceland and Greenland, the August sky never gets properly dark, even at midnight. The two best seats on Earth for yesterday's eclipse were, at the same time, among the worst seats for the meteor shower. Cameras were running everywhere along the path by the time totality reached Spain. Ground crews in Iceland caught the shadow's leading edge, arriving as a wall, visibly sweeping across open terrain. In Spain, teams counted down the final seconds live, watching the last sliver of sunlight thin to nothing before the corona snapped into view. One widely shared clip from a field near Burgos captures exactly that moment. The sky deep blue at its edges, the horizon glowing amber, then the sudden bloom of pale light around a perfect black disk. Space agencies ran continuous coverage from Iceland and Spain for hours. State broadcasters carried their own feeds, including footage from Russia showing the first bite taken out of the sun well before the shadow reached the Atlantic. What stands out, at least to me watching it back today, is how consistent the human reaction was, stream to stream, cheering on some, gasping on others, a few seconds of dead silence on more than a few before anyone reacts. None of it staged. It's roughly the same response documented at nearly every total eclipse in modern history, and it gets me every time. Okay, the rumor that had half the internet either terrified or rolling its eyes for a month straight. The claim, Earth would lose gravity for 7 seconds on August 12th at exactly 2:33 p.m. Universal Time. It cited a supposedly leaked document from November 2024, a classified program with an $89 billion budget and mass casualties once everything crashed back down. Not a new game, and honestly, it never really changes. In 1910, Halley's Comet was due to pass close to Earth, and newspapers picked up on the fact that its tail contained a toxic gas called cyanogen. Astronomers said the gas was so thin it would never be noticeable. That detail got dropped fast. People bought gas masks, sealed their windows, paid for comet pills, sold door-to-door as protection against a poison sky. Nothing happened, obviously, same as yesterday, but the pattern's identical. Take one real astronomical fact, staple an invented catastrophe onto it, and let the real fact do the lying for you. I'd rather actually check it than just laugh it off. 2:33 p.m. Universal Time. That's the number the claim gave. Greatest eclipse landed at 5:46 p.m., over 3 hours later. So the trigger, according to this story, fired 3 hours before the thing it was supposedly triggered by. One number. Checkable in 10 seconds. Wrong. The mechanism is worse. Gravity at Earth's surface comes down to two things and two things only: the mass under your feet and how far you are from the center of it. That's the whole equation. Nothing else feeds in. To kill gravity for 7 seconds, you'd have to delete essentially all of Earth's mass and then put it back before anyone noticed. A shadow doesn't do that. A shadow is an absence of light, full stop. And the moon has crossed between Earth and the sun roughly every 29.5 days for 4.5 billion years. Gravity has never once blinked. Nobody ever produced the leaked document. Fact-checkers looked. Space agencies said, plainly and in advance, that nothing was happening to gravity on August 12th. Nothing did. Why'd it travel this far then? Not because people are gullible. That explanation is lazy, and it's usually wrong. It traveled because it was built to sit right next to something true. There really was a rare eclipse. The moon really did cross the sun. Two details check out, and most people quietly stop checking the rest. That's the whole mechanism, right there, and it's not really about astronomy at all. The fabricated piece hides behind the verified one. Nobody expects you to catch bad orbital mechanics on the fly, that's fair. But a timestamp, A timestamp you can check against a published table that existed months before anyone dreamed up the claim. That's the tell. Every time, add it up, and the last 24 hours look like this. A 6-planet arc that cost nothing but sleep. A total solar eclipse that gave a narrow, lucky sliver of the planet under 2 minutes of true darkness, while nearly 1 billion people just outside that line watched something real but categorically different. A new moon and an eclipse that were never two events to begin with. A meteor shower peeking under the darkest sky it'll have again until 2045. A 100-year-old experiment quietly still running in the background of every eclipse since. And one fabricated gravity story that couldn't survive being checked against a clock. If you were inside the path yesterday, you saw something almost nobody else on the planet did. If you were nowhere near either line, the meteors were still out there for you last night regardless. The next total solar eclipse crosses southern Spain, North Africa, and the Arabian Peninsula less than a year from now. Yesterday just became history.